Thank you for joining us for the webinar on the California State Preschool Program Neighborhood School Eligibility Provision, hosted by the California Department of Education's Early Education Division. This webinar is being held on June 13th, 2024, and will run from 10 to 11 a.m. Next slide, please. My name is Amira Almala, and I am from the Early Education Division Policy Office at CDE. Today's webinar will provide information about the CSPP Neighborhood School Eligibility Provision and how California state preschool programs can use this provision to enroll children, which we explained in detail in Management Bulletin 2401, California State Preschool Program Neighborhood School Eligibility Criteria to enroll 3- and 4-year-old children, released in January of this year. This Management Bulletin, or MB, includes guidance regarding changes that allow 3-year-olds to be enrolled under the Neighborhood School Eligibility Provision, the updated list of qualified free and reduced price meal, or FRPM schools, and updates to the process for site verification. We'll share the link now in the chat for you to reference as needed throughout this presentation. Everything I cover today is outlined in more detail in the MB. I am joined today by my colleagues in the Early Education Division, Virginia Early, Sasha Mowry, and Jasmine Nesbitt, also from the Policy Office like myself, as well as Crystal Devlin, Alice Ludwig, Deborah Wacker, Amy Silva, and Adam High from the Program Quality Implementation, or PQI North Office, who are a great team here to help you to help answer all of your questions. Just to cover some logistics, you can turn on closed captioning by clicking on the CC button on the bottom right of your screen. And as a reminder, our chat box is disabled. The CDE team will be sharing links, but you are unable to use the chat. Please utilize the Q&A feature to ask us questions. And as a reminder, when you ask questions using that Q&A feature, please give us as much detail as possible before clicking the submit button. For example, which contract, age of students, and other important information to help us answer the question. Our team is committed to being as responsive as possible, but we can't answer every single question. So we'll take all of these questions from the Q&A and address them in frequently asked questions, which we'll post to our website. Next slide, please. So let's briefly review the agenda for today. Next, we'll be sharing an overview of MB 2401 and the definition of the CSPP Neighborhood School Eligibility Provision. We will spend some time on the initial site verification process after that and work through the forms and tools that you may need to use to complete this process. Then we will review what happens when sites are approved, including the family residency documentation requirements. After that, we will go to the new annual re-verification process. And at the end of the presentation, there will be time for you to ask questions and get answers. And we will select questions from the Q&A to answer out loud, but we won't be taking any live questions. And finally, we will close and let you know how you can get answers to any remaining questions that may come up. Next slide, please. So the California California State Preschool Program Neighborhood School Eligibility is a new name for the eligibility provision that was previously called the Free and Reduced Price Meal, or FRPM eligibility. The name was changed to more accurately reflect what the eligibility is and to reduce confusion. And we'll go over some of the issues around that later on in the presentation. Management Bulletin 2401, CSPP Neighborhood School Eligibility Criteria to enroll 3 and 8217. Which allows CSPP programs operating within the attendance boundary of a qualified FRPM elementary school to enroll, after all other priorities, 3- and 4-year-old children whose families reside within the attendance boundaries of the same qualified FRPM elementary school. And children enrolled through this provision must be enrolled from lowest to highest income to the extent possible. MB 2401 also specifies that CSPP neighborhood school eligibility is valid for one program year and must be verified or re-verified each year. And just as a note, kindergarten-age children attending Part Day CSPP programs for extended learning and care around their kindergarten class experience are not eligible to enroll through this provision because they do not meet the statutory definition of a 3 or a 4-year-old. Next slide, please. For most of the webinar, we're going to walk through the process of CSPP neighborhood school site verification, including each of the requirements and steps to meet the requirements. I will start with the initial verification process. And this is a process that should be used if you are verifying a site for the first time, or if the CSPP site does not qualify as a CSPP neighborhood school site for one program year or longer. In order to qualify to enroll children in CSPP through the neighborhood school eligibility provision, a CSPP site must be within the attendance boundaries of a qualified FRPM school. And contractors need to complete 3 steps to determine and document each of their sites' eligibility, which is detailed on the next slides, and to enroll children through this provision. We are going to walk through each step slowly, including looking at the form and related documents over the next few slides. Next slide, please. For the first step of site verification and approval, that first step is to identify and document the neighborhood school of the CSPP site. This step differs from the previous process because we have added additional ways for contractors to identify and document the neighborhood school to make the site verification process easier. There are now 3 options that a contractor can use to identify and document their neighborhood school. The first option, option 1, is to use a local school district or county office of education website tool to identify the neighborhood school attendance boundaries for the CSPP site. Save a copy of the results indicating the CSPP site's neighborhood school. Option 2 is to use a printed or online map of the school's attendance boundaries within which the CSPP site is located. This map must be the map for the current school year, and the location of the CSPP site should be indicated on the map. The third option, option number 3, is to contact the neighborhood elementary school for attendance boundary information and have the principal or an authorized representative sign the statement on the site verification form certifying that the CSPP site falls within the attendance boundaries of that school. Next slide, please. So the screenshot on this slide shows one example of a website tool for Sacramento City School Districts. On this tool, I can enter my home or CSPP site address to find out the neighborhood school. This screenshot shows I have entered the CDE headquarters address at 1430 N Street in Sacramento. I've selected an elementary grade, kindergarten, and then clicked Find. In this case, when I clicked Find, the tool shows me that William Land Elementary School is the neighborhood school. So you would save a copy of this page and include it with the site verification form, which we'll go over in a few slides. Next slide, please. Here is a screenshot of an online map of Lenox School District showing Buford Elementary School's attendance boundaries. This example is from Lenox School District in Los Angeles County. There is a CSPP site located at Buford Preschool on Felton Avenue, which is represented by a yellow star on the map. This map shows that the CSPP site is within the attendance boundaries of the elementary school. Next slide, please. So here are 3 screenshots showing the site verification form. And if we look at the first screenshot on the far left, at the top is where everyone will enter the agency and CSPP site information. In the second screenshot in the middle, there's a whole section for site verification. For options 1 and 2 on this form, you would include a separate document as documentation. And for option C, the principal or authorized representative would read and sign the FRPM school verification statement at the end of the form. And the site verification form can be found on the CSPP Neighborhood School Site Verification webpage, which can be accessed at the link on the slide here, which I'll read, and we'll also post it in the chat. So the link is https://www.cde.ca/schooling.asp. Next slide, please. So that first step ensures that the CSPP contractor knows where or what their neighborhood school is. However, in order to be eligible to enroll children through the neighborhood school eligibility provision, that school must also be a qualified FRPM school. So determining the neighborhood school status is step number 2. The list of eligible public elementary schools posted to the CDE Neighborhood School Site Verification webpage, which we just shared the link to, by June 1st each year, indicates all of the qualified FRPM schools for the program year. Note that schools can move on and off the list from one year to the next. So a school that doesn't appear on the current list of eligible public elementary schools posted to the CSPP Neighborhood School Site Verification page is not going to be eligible. All right, next slide, please. So I'll briefly share how a school is designated as a qualified FRPM school for the purposes of CSPP neighborhood school eligibility, because I know we've got a lot of questions about this. So elementary schools, which are not magnet schools or charter schools, and which serve 80% or more of students who are eligible for the free and reduced price meals program, are eligible. And this list is based on the previous October data for all schools, meaning it captures which schools were qualified FRPM schools at a specific point in time in October. So the list that we just posted to be used to determine neighborhood school site verification for the 2024-25 program year relies on data from October 2023. So while sometimes school districts may have more recently updated information about the percentage of students eligible for free and reduced price meals, we use the same list for all schools, and that is the one that we've posted to our site verification page, just so that we can be consistent, and the same list can be made available to all CSPP programs. So now I'll pass it over to Sasha to go over the list in more detail.
Each year, the list of eligible public elementary schools is produced using the previous FRPM's data as discussed and posted to the Neighborhood School Site Verification webpage, which is accessible from Management Bulletin 2401 webpage. And we'll share that link again in the chat. I can also read it. It is available at https://www.cde.ca.gov/SP/SC/CI/CDE/SC/CI/BORHOOD/ELIG.ASP. Next slide shows a screenshot of the new list for program year 2024-25, zoomed in to the part of the list showing schools in Sacramento City Unified School District in Sacramento County. I'm going to look for a few schools that I identified in the last step as a starting place. William Land Elementary is in Sacramento County and the Sacramento City Unified School District. As the screenshot shows, William Land is not one of the schools on the list for Sacramento City Unified School District. You can also double check within the list by using Control F or search to find the school name, but in this case, it is not there. That means that William Land Elementary is not eligible. So in this case, I would not apply to enroll children through the neighborhood school eligibility provision. Next slide. This is example 2. This slide shows a screenshot of the list zoomed into the part of the list showing schools in Lenox School District in Los Angeles County, the one we saw the map for earlier. The second school I want to look up is Buford Elementary. We again saw that on the previous examples. I'm going to look at the schools on the list for Lenox School District and see if it is an eligible school. I first look for the school district and then the name of my school. As this screenshot shows, Buford Elementary is on the list, so it is an eligible school. You can see it in green. Buford State Preschool, the CSPP located at the site we indicated earlier on the map, can apply to get approval to enroll children through the neighborhood school eligibility provision. Next slide. Finally, this slide shows a screenshot of 3 sections of the list. I have searched for Martin Luther King Jr. Elementary in El Centro School District in Imperial County. Martin Luther King Jr. is the name of many elementary schools around the state. If I use the find function or I'm scrolling through the list and look for the first name on the list with that name, I might accidentally get the school located in the Monterey Peninsula Unified School District in Monterey County, shown in the first screenshot from the top, or the one in Santa Ana Unified in Orange County, shown in the second screenshot from the top. The third screenshot from the top shows schools in Imperial County in El Centro School District and indicates that Martin Luther King Jr. Elementary is on the list. That means a CSPP site within those attendance boundaries can apply for approval to enroll children through the neighborhood school eligibility provision. Next slide. To apply for initial approval, contractors must first complete the first 2 steps and then apply for approval from the CDE by completing the site verification form with documentation and submitting it to FRPM site approval at cde.ca.gov. That's FRPM SITEAPPROVAL at cde.ca.gov. You will receive a written response from CDE in an email once your initial site verification form and documents have been reviewed and verified. This email will state whether the site was approved or does not meet the eligibility requirements and was denied. Next slide, please. Once approved in writing by CDE, the contractor may begin to enroll families who reside within the attendance boundaries of the same qualified FRPM school for the program year, July 1st through June 30th. Documentation from the site verification must be maintained in the program records for 5 years. We ask you to keep the records this long to ensure they are available for monitoring as needed. Next slide. Additional step is needed when the CSPP contractor wants to enroll families through the neighborhood school eligibility provision. The family must provide documentation of their residency within the attendance boundaries of the same qualified FRPM neighborhood school as the CSPP site. Title V regulations include the list of documentation that can be used for residency. So this is California Code of Regulations, Title V, Section 17774B. Documentation for residency can include 1, current utility bill, 2, current property tax bill, 3, current rental or lease agreement with landlord's information, current 4, current voter registration, 5, current government agency letter, 6, current employment stub, or 7, any documentation that a contractor reasonably relies upon to prove a family's residency. Next slide. Moving forward, there will also be an annual re-verification process for contractors to complete for each site that has received written approval from the CDE for the previous program year. If one or more program years has passed since the site was approved, contractors must follow the initial verification process and receive written approval from the CDE before enrolling children using this eligibility provision. The contractor will complete a survey to answer a series of questions about the CSPP site and the qualified elementary school associated with that site. The annual re-verification survey will be available on the Neighborhood School Site Verification webpage on the CDE website, which we shared the link to in the chat. It is also accessible via Management Bulletin 24-01. The survey must be completed for each site for each year that the contractor is seeking to enroll children through the neighborhood school eligibility provision. Next slide. Once the survey has been completed, you will receive an immediate response to the status of your site's eligibility. The response will indicate either that the site is eligible for the new program or fiscal year to enroll children through the neighborhood school eligibility provision, or the site is not eligible for the new program fiscal year to enroll children through the neighborhood school eligibility provision, or the site will need to contact CDE to complete the initial verification process due to changes in the site location or school boundaries. Again, you'll contact CDE to apply for written approval. You will need to print the response page for your program records and then press submit on the response page to record your status with CDE. There will be no record of the site's continued eligibility if you do not press submit, and your site will not be considered eligible. Even if the survey indicates the site is not eligible, we encourage you to click submit so that CDE has up-to-date records on the eligibility of CSPP sites over time. This data will help us to continue to streamline the verification process. Next slide, please. The annual re-verification survey asks for the contractor name, vendor number, and the name of the site, as well as the following questions. Was the site approved as a CSPP neighborhood school eligibility site for the 2023-2024 program year? Did the approved CSPP neighborhood school eligibility site address change since it was approved? What was the name of the qualified FRPM school that served as a basis for approval for the 2023-24 program year? What school district is the qualified FRPM school in? Is the qualified FRPM elementary school on the list of qualified FRPM elementary schools released for fiscal year 2024-25? Has the identified qualified FRPM elementary school address changed? Have the attendance boundaries of the identified qualified FRPM elementary school changed? Next slide. Programs that received written approval of a CSPP site's eligibility can enroll children using the neighborhood school eligibility provision through June 30th of the program year. This includes part-day programs, which may be enrolling children for the upcoming program year through the 120-day enrollment flexibility. For example, if a CSPP is certifying and enrolling a child in spring 2024 for the 2024-25 year, and the site at which the child would be attending has been verified as a CSPP neighborhood school eligibility site for 2023-24, the child could be enrolled for 2024-25 under that provision. CDE will post the updated list of eligible public elementary schools and annual re-verification survey by June 1st to be used for verifying site eligibility for the upcoming program year. Programs seeking to continue to enroll children through the neighborhood school eligibility provision in the upcoming program year must re-verify their site's eligibility using the updated list and receive written approval by July 1st or before certifying or enrolling any new children under the neighborhood school eligibility provision. We encourage you to begin re-verifying each site's eligibility for the 2024-25 program year now. Next slide. Now it is time for questions and answers. We'll be answering some of the questions that are coming up most frequently in the Q&A, but will not be taking any live questions today. If there are any questions that we are unable to answer today, please reach out to your Program Quality Implementation, or PQI, office regional consultants, because they are here to provide you technical assistance and help you work through any challenges that may arise. We want to make sure that contractors have the support and are able to get the information needed to successfully understand, apply for, and enroll children through the neighborhood school eligibility provision. We will now post a link to the PQI Consultant Regional Directory in the chat. All right. I'm going to quickly look and see what questions have been coming up. It looks like there is a question about 3-year-old children who turn 3 before December 1st, whether they are eligible. Those children would be eligible because they fall under the statutory definition of a 3-year-old, which is any child that turns 3 on or before December 1st. Let me see. There's a question about 24-month eligibility. Yes, children who enter through the neighborhood school eligibility provision do have 24-month eligibility. See. It's like I'm going to call on Danielle to help. Looks like she has a clarification she'd like to add here. Danielle, if you'd like to go ahead and step up.
Thanks, Sasha. So I've seen a couple questions come in about, like, does this apply to LEAs? Does this apply to school districts? Does this apply to state preschool contractors? And I think we just want to be very, very clear. This guidance is for state preschool contractors. It is not for LEAs. It is not for school districts, unless those LEAs or school districts hold a state preschool contract. This is only for your state preschool contract piece. This is not like a determination of eligibility for anything to do with TK to 12 education. This is just for state preschool. And so it gets a little confusing and a little tricky, because it's eligibility for the state preschool program based on the free and reduced price meal threshold at the local elementary school. And so it gets a little confusing and can be a little tricky when you're trying to navigate who this applies to, but it is applying to just the California State Preschool Program, children enrolling in that program, and does not have anything to do with eligibility for TK to 12 enrollment. So I just wanted to make that clarification, because I saw there was a little bit of confusion about who it applied to. So thanks.
Thank you, Danielle. And I think, Virginia, did you want to answer the next question?
I actually wanted to add something to what Danielle's just said. So, and just maybe to start with, just sort of share. I mean, obviously, this is something that we're implementing because of the legislature, and I think that the intent was in an area that's has a lot of low-income families, giving programs more flexibility about who they enroll. And that's really sort of the purpose of neighborhood school eligibility. And basically, you know, how do you measure a community? How do you measure a neighborhood? How do you measure, you know, what an area is that is, you know, has lower incomes? And the metric of, well, how many children are eligible for free and reduced price meals at the elementary school was the one that was selected. And so it's really a measure of sort of neighborhood, something about the neighborhood. But in order to sort of confirm, the law also says that the family has to be living in the neighborhood and the state preschool program has to be has to be operating in the neighborhood. And so that's where you get these documentation things. And so just wanting to sort of start with the purpose and really clarify, this is any state preschool program, not just a state preschool program operated by an LEA. So let's say you're a community-based organization and you're operating in a neighborhood that has neighborhood eligibility because the local elementary school has, let's say, 90% of its students are eligible for free and reduced price meals. That community-based organization could go through that process, get verification that they operate within the boundaries of that neighborhood school site that meets this threshold, confirm that school is on the list, and get this to apply to them. So just wanting to clarify that, as Danielle said, it can get kind of complicated because we're using data about an elementary school to tell something about a neighborhood. And so wanting to just clarify that. That was the main thing I wanted to cover. I also know that there are some questions about 24-month eligibility, and there are various iterations on that. So Danielle, can I turn it over to you for you to cover? There's one about what if a family comes in under neighborhood school eligibility as their eligibility criteria. They're going to a site in the neighborhood, and then they want to move to a state preschool site not in the neighborhood. Or what happens if the year the family gets certified, the neighborhood that they live in and go to state preschool in meets the 80% qualifications, and then the next year it doesn't. Can you talk a little bit more about the intersection with 24-month eligibility?
Absolutely. So we want to recognize that a certification or recertification happens at a point in time. So you use the documentation that's applicable at the point of time of initial certification or recertification to determine eligibility for a family. All families for state preschool, regardless of the eligibility category or need or whatever applies to them, is going to receive 24 months of eligibility. Doesn't matter what they're enrolled under, doesn't matter if they're in part day versus full day. 24-month eligibility applies a little differently to part day and full day, to note, but regardless, they still get that benefit, even if they enroll under neighborhood school eligibility. As far as what that means for if a child moves from one site to another, again, it's all at the point in time of initial certification. So if the family is able to enroll because they live within the same attendance boundary of a site that is within the school boundaries of an elementary school that meets that 80% threshold of free and reduced price meals, then they can stay at that site. They can move sites after they've been certified. It doesn't take away the family's certification because the family is guaranteed that 24 months of service, and we don't require them to provide updated documentation. There's lots of reasons why a family might change sites. For example, if a contractor closes a site and they want to move families, we don't want families to lose care because of that. It's not, eligibility is determined at time of certification based on that site, but that doesn't mean that they have to stay there for the whole remainder of the 24 months, if that is the case, right? But you would want to, if you're the contractor and you're moving a family over, you would want to really document the reason why, because what might happen when you come in for monitoring is if we see someone is enrolled under neighborhood school eligibility within a site that is not a neighborhood school eligibility approved site, we are going to ask some questions. So you're going to want to know, how did that child move from the site that they were approved to be certified at initially to the new site? So you're going to want to have some notes in there that explain that move if it does happen, but it is allowed to happen. Did I answer all the questions on the 24-month eligibility, Virginia, that you were bringing up? Is that all of them?
So, and if there are more that come in, folks can please add them to the Q&A.
Perfect.
I do see a few more questions that we can answer. One of the questions was, can we enroll children through the original qualifications and also through this provision? Absolutely, yes. The children who are income eligible and eligible through other criteria should be enrolled first. So if you are not clear about that, you might want to go back to the eligibility and priority management bulletin. But just know that neighborhood school eligibility is the last eligibility provision. It's at the very bottom. So you don't want to you're not going to be able to prioritize children through neighborhood school eligibility, but you can enroll them as well as children who are income eligible.
Can I just add something to this? So thanks, Sasha. So what that means in practice is you might have families that, let's say they earn 30% of the state median income. So they're very much eligible and they're probably close to the top of your priority list. Now, I think, there's a question, if you are approved for neighborhood school eligibility, if they come in under neighborhood school eligibility, then, you don't have to collect the same income documentation from them. The family self-certifies their income, etc. But the downside of that is that, if another family, let's say, that has 70% of state median income does provide that family would then be prioritized over the family that's coming in with 30%. So just wanting to sort of share that, even though neighborhood school eligibility allows folks to come in and self-certify their income, if you've got someone that's income eligible, especially someone that is income eligible sort of towards like the that would essentially be prioritized towards the top of the list, depending on what your waiting list looks like, you may want to still do all of the paperwork to have their income, bring them in under the income eligibility category so they could be prioritized. So just a couple complicating factors with that, and we'll put the link to the eligibility and priority management bulletin in the chat. We are working on updating that, but it's not significantly going to be significantly different, at least based on what the current law is from how it is. So I think it's still really good, a really good place to refer to.
Thank you. I did also see a question about the annual re-verification survey and how you know whether you're considered eligible. The survey itself will tell you, there will be a screen that will tell you whether you're eligible, not eligible, or need to apply again through CDE through the initial site verification process. The key thing is that that's on the page that has the submit button. So you want to make sure you grab that page and then also press submit, because otherwise we don't know that you have applied for eligibility. So you need to make sure you press submit, but it will tell you within the survey whether you're eligible or not. There's also a question about if a child is in transitional kindergarten or TK, can they be qualified under this? Yes, TK students do meet the definition of a statute for a 4-year-old in CSPP programs, and so they are eligible. It's kindergarten students who are not eligible because they do not qualify as 3-year-old or 4-year-old children through statute.
Can I just add a little reminder there, Sasha, that TK age children are only eligible for part day state preschool, not for full day state preschool. So not TK age eligible, TK children that are enrolled in TK. So if they are enrolled in TK and then still enrolling in state preschool for like the other half of the day for extended learning care, they can use this eligibility, but they cannot enroll in full day state preschool programs if they are enrolled in TK using this.
Thank you, Danielle, for that clarification. I am looking at other questions. There have been a few questions about priority and eligibility and enrollment. And so we just want to remind everyone that you must enroll in priority order. And then you have to enroll all otherwise eligible families first. So you have to check eligibility and then enroll within priority order. And I think that Virginia spoke to that a moment again. So want to make sure we clarify that. Let's see. You just asked for a restate of the clarification. I'm not sure if you're talking about Danielle's clarification, but children who are enrolled in TK programs, so they attend a TK program at an LEA and then come to a CSPP program for like extended learning and care, those children can only enroll in part day CSPP programs, but they would be eligible potentially through the neighborhood school eligibility provision. I don't see any other marked questions at the moment. Let's
I
see.
see some. I'm wondering, I can
Yep.
jump in and help. So here's one I think that's for Danielle. So if the family and the state preschool site both reside within the same neighboring elementary school eligibility, do parents need to verify their income at all? And what if that family goes above the 15% over income threshold category?
Yeah, thanks, Virginia. I just wanna, before we go into that too much, this is something that's come up a couple times about asking, do these families enrolling under neighborhood school eligibility have to fall within that 10% over income? And I want to be very, very clear. The eligibility for 15% over the income threshold that can only be up to 10% of your contract is a different eligibility category than neighborhood school eligibility. So all the children enrolling under neighborhood school eligibility do not count towards that 10% limit on those families enrolling with 15% over the income threshold. So they're two separate things. They should be considered two separate. This doesn't count towards that threshold, that 10% limit. So just wanting to make that very clear before we go into this a little bit more. And then as far as income, all families enrolling under neighborhood school eligibility should be self-certifying their income for purposes of priority and for family fees if they are in full day programs. So priority for both part day and full day, and family fees for just full day, because there's no family fees in part day. So making sure that you are not required to collect income documentation. Families don't need to provide a bunch of documentation that shows their income. They also don't need to provide documentation of need. What they need to provide is a self-certification of income, so you can prioritize them within other families that are enrolling under neighborhood school eligibility, because as a reminder, you have to do the lowest to highest income within this category of eligibility. So that's what the self-certification of income is used for. And then also determining family fees for full day. And then you just have to collect their residency documentation as far as eligibility goes. There's no requirement to collect anything for need unless you're in a full day program and the family wants more than full-time services. So if they want those full-time plus services, then they are required to provide additional supporting documentation to support that need. You can find requirements for how to determine hours for a family enrolling under neighborhood school eligibility in our current regulations. We already have a regulation about it. It is section 17754, and I will go ahead and put a link to it in the chat so you can see, and it applies to both families applying. I think it just sent to panelists. Maybe one of the panelists can help me, or one of the hosts can help me send it to everyone. But the requirement in regulation is that if a family is enrolling under no need category or neighborhood school eligibility, then they are able to have services no more than 10 hours per day and no more than 5 days per week. So they will be able to get full-time care, and it's just based off the parent request. And then, like I said, if they have any other need to beyond that, so beyond 10 hours a day, to get into the full-time plus category, they do have to provide documentation for that. So hopefully that is a little clear about like the documentation requirements. There's a lot of questions about, do they have to have the need for services? Do they have to be income eligible, etc. Like I said, you're just looking at income through a self-certification by the family just for purposes of ranking these families within this category, and for family fees. And then no need and no other eligibility requirement needs to be met. So they don't have to be income eligible. They don't have to meet another eligibility category. So hopefully that's a little more clear for everyone now.
Thank you, Danielle. And I believe that is the questions that you had marked. Virginia, was there a question you wanted to answer?
Yeah, thanks, Sasha. So we got a question about essentially why here's the question, I'll just read it. If a child currently it's scrolled after. Okay. Can you explain why a contractor would need to do step 1, which is gathering the documentation about which which elementary school is their neighborhood elementary school before doing step 2? Which is determining if the neighborhood school is qualified. If the school isn't qualified, then there's no need to collect the location, documentation, etc. So the reason that we've laid it out in the step 1, 2, and 3, step 1, 2, and 3 in the management bulletin is because in order to know if your program is going to meet, to count, if it counts, you need to know, first of all, what your neighborhood elementary school is. Now, if you're at, let's say you're an elementary school district and you operate state preschool on your campus, that's going to be a pretty easy question for you to answer because you know this. Or maybe you're a community-based organization and you're renting space on an elementary school campus. You're going to know that this applies to you, and then it's just a matter of getting the documentation. But some programs may not know, and so you need to make sure you know what your neighborhood school is and whether you operate in the attendance boundaries of that school before you know which school to look up in the tool to see if they count. So if you want it, if you think you know what it is, you could skip to step 2, see if it's on the list, and then go back and get the documentation for step 1. But the reason that we've laid it out that way is that, if you're not sure which is your neighborhood school, you need to look that up. And that's really the first step, because if you don't know what your neighborhood school is, how are you supposed to find it in the Excel document in step 2? So that addresses that question. I think that, let's see. I think that addresses some of these. I think there's some questions I'm seeing around the difference between part day and full day state preschool. So maybe either Sasha or Danielle, you can clarify, whether are there any differences for neighborhood school eligibility and how it applies for part day and full day state preschool.
Yes, thank you. Families can enroll through the neighborhood school eligibility provision for either part day state preschool or full day state preschool. However, there are some differences. One is that kindergarten eligibility that we mentioned earlier, that kindergarten students who would be in part day programs, cannot enroll through the neighborhood school eligibility provision. In terms of other differences, the differences are more related to the rules for part and full day programs. So part day programs do not require a need. And so you wouldn't ever be considering that. And then for neighborhood school eligibility for full day programs, they do not have to have a need. So it gets recorded as no need, but you still do have to record that information. Let's see. I hope that is helpful for that question. There was another question about, I'm sorry, I have too many screens open. It's taking me a moment to get back to the questions and answers. There was a question about who's responsible for making sure this child is eligible. If you want to enroll any student, any children into a California State preschool program through neighborhood school eligibility, the CSPP contractor has to apply and get written approval from CDE before you can enroll any children through this eligibility. The contractor is then also accountable to make sure that the family lives within the same attendance boundary. So the contractor is really the one doing all of that. The CDE will make sure that we review your application and get approval before you enroll any children. So that's why someone asked, is there a deadline to enroll for 2024-25 neighborhood school eligibility for your site? There isn't an exact deadline. We highly encourage everyone to apply now, right? Because if you apply now, then you will have eligibility and you qualify. You will have eligibility starting on July 1st, which is the beginning of the new program year. Otherwise, you have to make sure you apply and get approval before you start enrolling any children under this provision. So sometimes there are cases where the CSPP site hasn't done the eligibility, but they have a family who would be eligible. And so they will apply. And then once they've gotten the approval, then they can enroll that child. But it's better to just apply up front so that you have that eligibility for the whole program year through June 30th. So let's see, that answers that one. Let's see. There's one about questions about LEA sites on school district grounds. I think I answered that in the question and answer, but if your site is on a school grounds, then you know which school would be your neighborhood school, and you would still need to apply, but you would need to document that that's your neighborhood school, and then also confirm that that school is on the list of qualified FRPM schools. So we have to check our list, make sure, submit that documentation. You're going to submit it either, if it's an initial verification, you're going to submit it to the FRPM site approval at cde.ca.gov email address. And then if you are re-verifying, you can complete that through the survey.
And I want to just add one thing to what Sasha said. So if you're, in most cases, what Sasha said is going to be right, but just note that this is tied to elementary school sites and their attendance boundaries. So let's say for whatever reason you have a state preschool that's at like a high school site, you would then have to sort of figure out which attendance boundaries for like which elementary school boundaries that site fell in, and then look up to see if that elementary school is on the list. So just wanting to remind folks that it's connected to elementary.
Thank you for that clarification. Danielle, did you want to answer a question about collecting income? I see that it's marked.
Oh, I think I just maybe forgot to unmark it, but I will ask another question answer another question because I saw a lot of them come in. And lots of people are asking, do these families enrolling under neighborhood school eligibility still pay family fees? And the answer to that is yes. If they are in full day programs, they are not exempt from family fees. They will be assessed a family fee if they are in a full day program under this eligibility category. But that's all I had. Thanks, Sasha.
Thank you, Danielle. I wanted to confirm that we had answered the question. All right, let's see if there are other new questions coming in. If you have a family that has a child in CSPP program and CCTR program, will this disqualify the family? So I don't know that it would disqualify the family, but the child would not be qualified for CCTR, even if the sibling was eligible for CSPP through the neighborhood school eligibility provision, because that's a CSPP specific eligibility. So those two are not the same. They don't have the same requirements. Let's see.
Sasha, I think I can take one last question probably. Does that work? Okay.
It sounds good.
Great.
Thank you, Amira.
Yeah, so it looks like we have just about 2 minutes left. So this is the last question I think we'll be answering live. And so we did get a question about the timelines around filling out the annual re-verification survey. And questions about this July 1st deadline. So we just wanted to clarify that programs can enroll through June 30th with their, if they've received written approval of site verification for that program year. But starting July 1st, if you want to keep enrolling children, you would need to use the annual re-verification survey to determine if your site is actually is verified for that program year that starts on July 1st. So just wanted to clarify that point. And I will hand it back to Sasha to close us.
All right. Thank you so much, Amira. And thank you everyone for the wonderful questions. We are working to answer as many of them as we can. And of course, the recording will be posted after it has been processed. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any additional questions, you can also reach out to your Program Quality Implementation or PQI regional consultants, and we will get your questions answered. Have a wonderful Thursday and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much.